My name is Katie Winnock-Fink, and I am one of the co-presidents of STEMinist. So just a little bit about us. STEMinist Club is a group on campus dedicated to education and enrichment of underrepresented groups in science fields with a particular focus on female empowerment and support. We typically run our meetings bi-weekly and have activities that kind of range from fun, silly science crafts to education weeks. We take field trips to aquariums and museums, and we do a lot of really cool stuff. So if you're not on our alias and you would like to be, just drop your email in the chat and we can add you to that. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our amazing speaker, Kimberly McGrove McMenamin. Hold on, sorry.
You're muted, Katie.
All right, Kimberly graduated from Gettysburg College in 2008 with a major in chemistry and a minor in mathematics. She received a master's degree in food science from Penn State University in 2010 with a thesis on the prevention and reversal of high-fat diet-induced metabolic syndrome in mice by dietary epigallatocatenin 3 gallate, the major component found in green tea. Currently, Kimberly works at the Hershey Company and is a senior research scientist in chocolate product development. She creates new chocolate products and helps optimize existing items. Some products that she's worked on include Kit Kat Duo's mint and dark chocolate, Hershey's chocolate spreads, Reese's peanut butter cups, my favorite, and many more. She resides in central Pennsylvania with her husband, 2 children, and 1 crazy dog. Let's give it up for Kimberly. Thank you so much.
Everyone, thanks Katie and Tayden and Monique. I'm so excited to be here with you guys and presenting tonight. This is awesome, and I love that there's so many people here supporting the STEMinist. So like Katie said, I am a Gettysburg alumni and have my chemistry major in 2008. And now I'm at the Hershey Company. So tonight I'll give you a little bit of an overview of how I got from Gettysburg to where I am today at the Hershey Company, and then also give you like a little bit of an overview of the process of making chocolate and put a little bit of chemistry in there for you. So I'll start to share my screen and hopefully this works. Okay. Can everybody see? I'm going to try to do. See if I can. I'm used to all the Zoom and everything's going virtual now. I'm used to Teams, but this is perfect for Zoom. So like we were just saying in the, Katie introduced me. So I was at Gettysburg. It felt like not so long ago, but it has been. But I loved it there, living at the Science Center and always just having fun with meeting lifelong friends and always eating at Servo, and I miss that food so much. From Gettysburg, I knew I wanted to go into grad school, and I was trying to figure out what can I do with my chemistry degree. I always loved to cook, so I was looking around and seeing things like what could I do with a food company, and I realized that there's a thing called food science. It's a concentration that you can have that as an undergraduate degree and also a graduate degree. And it's at big state schools. So food science, it combines biology, chemistry, engineering, nutrition, all into one concentration of how do you make food, keep things safe, and anything the science behind food. So it sounds like a little bit made up, but it is a fun application of just how everything's made. So at Penn State, I got my master's, and it was more of a concentration of nutrition. So I looked at a polyphenolic compound found in green tea and how that can help prevent some symptoms in obesity in mice. So looking at like animal studies in mice of how this compound could help us, and then also just looking at what do these compounds do and doing enzymatic reactions in some of like doing blood work with mice or other things. So it was really interesting. It taught me a lot, but it was also great building blocks from what I learned at from the Science Center and all of our science classes at Gettysburg. And it was just really helped build you as a scientist and have that independence and critical thinking to set you up for success in grad school. So from Penn State, I knew I wanted to work with food and not do nutrition or work with animals again. So I was applying to food companies. There's a lot of food companies across the East Coast and all over the country, but I was really lucky and I got my dream job at the Hershey company. So at Hershey, I work in product development, and that is basically the work of making new products and then also helping to optimize existing products. So it's just really fun. You get to work on a lot of different brands. So here's a bunch of them that I've worked on before, and it's just a lot of eating candy at weird times in the morning and just being addicted to chocolate, basically. So I'll teach you a little bit about how chocolate is made. So chocolate, it comes from a cocoa pod to beans and liquor, and then into the different components that make up chocolate. So Hershey is known mostly for their chocolate. They also own different other brands like Twizzlers and icebreakers, but obviously the Hershey bar is our main appeal and tastes really great. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of where it comes from. So Theobromine cacao is the name of the plant or the tree where the cocoa beans come from. So in this picture here, you can see that these the cocoa pods are growing on the trunk of these trees, and these trees, they grow in the tropical environment. So it's mostly in countries around the equator that grow the cocoa pods, and we harvest this. It's a really labor-intensive process because it's just it's not just going through like a cornfield and getting everything out. It's going through by hand, collecting these pods with a machete from the tree, and then also having them ferment in the field. So what they do is they crack open these pods with a machete, and then inside there's pulp, and that's where the cocoa beans are. And they start to ferment in the fields, and they use banana leaves to help with the fermentation process. That's one of the methods. And then they have that go for about 5 days. So there's a lot of different chemical reactions going on. So in this first picture, there's it looks sort of like a banana texture, and then inside there's the cocoa seeds or pods. It changes after it's fermenting into a darker color. So you can see different enzymatic reactions are going on. There's a lot of flavor development in those 5 days. And it's really interesting that you don't expect that this is what is happening to get your chocolate. So this is just a good example of what a fresh beans look like. And then whenever after 5 days, it's you can see there's color changes, the texture changes, a lot of reactions going on with that. So from there, they're dried, and then so that takes a few days for them to dry, and then before shipping out to factories across the world. So the cocoa beans, inside is you crack open that shell and there's cocoa nibs. So that's what we're after. And that when we roast those, that's also getting more flavor development. So low roasted nibs, it tastes sort of like fruity or wine, and it has more of the, you can taste more of those the fruity characteristics. And then whenever it's roasted a little bit higher, sort of tastes more like coffee. So you taste more of those dark roasted notes. So it's really interesting, just even different fermentation processes, and then also different roasting times and temperatures change the flavor of all this stuff. So you can really be a true connoisseur of different chocolate, which is fun to do. So the cocoa nibs are ground up, and you get chocolate liquor. So it sounds funny that it's chocolate liquor. There's no alcohol in there. It's just the name of the pure cacao without any sugar or any other ingredients in there. So you can see that sometimes in the baking aisle, you can see just a baking square, and that's pure 100% cacao. Sometimes you could see Lindt has different percent cacao bars. So if you're really into dark chocolate, they have like 70% or 80%, and it's very bitter, but some people really like to to eat that. But so that's the different parts of the chocolate. And then from there, you can get the chocolate, you can compress the liquor to get cocoa powder and then extract out some of the cocoa butter. And so that's one of two of the ingredients you can get to get more chocolate goodness. So to make chocolate, use some of these chocolate ingredients. So you can get chocolate liquor, or you can use cocoa powder and cocoa butter to combine those, and then also add in some milk and sugar and some yummy vanilla flavor, and then you get a chocolate bar with some processing, of course. But so that's how chocolate is made, those chocolate bars. But there's a little bit more of the science behind it, and I'll add in a little bit of our chemistry for our audience tonight. So with chocolate, I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard about there has to be a good temper on chocolate, or if you've ever tried to use melt chocolate in your kitchen and do like chocolate covered pretzels, or make the cake pops with chocolate covered cake pops, and it doesn't turn out the way you think it does, or it melts in your fingers, or it has like a white, like looks really like hazy on top. Well, that's called chocolate bloom, and it's from not cooling down or getting the right crystal structure from the cocoa butter. So we have to do a thing called tempering, so that we get this. This is called bloomed chocolate. And sometimes you can get this if you put your chocolate bar outside or in your hot car, and then it looks like a good chocolate bar, but then it melts, and then whenever it reforms and it hardens, these crystals form. And this is from the cocoa butter. So cocoa butter is polymorphic. So that means it has different positions that it can be in. So this is a graphic of the triglyceride of what the different stages it can be in. So if we have it in the beta stage, it's the stage of what we want. So it gives you a really shiny chocolate bar. When you break it in half, it snaps and it tastes good. It melts in your mouth. It doesn't melt in your fingers right away. But if you get that is not tempered properly, and it really melts and doesn't taste like, it just has a weird texture to it. So we want to get into these more positions so that the cocoa butter, the fat, they sit in with each other tightly, so that you get a nice solid piece of chocolate. To get to the right crystal structure, what we have to do so this is what we do for making any type of chocolate bar. You always have to temper it anytime you're working with chocolate. So it can get to be a little bit complicated. So if you're not in the right temperatures, or if you don't have the right settings in your factory or in your lab, you get bad chocolate. So this is a really important it's a really important principle of chemistry that you need to understand, so that you can get a really the perfect chocolate bar that you can get. So how do we get these beta crystals to form in our chocolate? So first, you melt out all the crystals. So you heat up your chocolate, so you have melted chocolate. But then you also cool it down. So when you cool it down, you're starting to get crystals to form. But you don't want the bad crystals to form, like in this picture. You want these the beta crystal forms to form in the cocoa butter. So the cooling it down, you're getting more crystals to get into your in the chocolate. But we're going to try to heat it up a little bit. So you're heating it up just slightly, so that you melt out all these other crystals that are not stable. And then you have the rest of the melted chocolate. So then once it's starting to seed it, if you give it a few minutes of just mixing it, because also mixing it helps generate more of these good crystals, that helps. And then you have the good structure that we can have a tempered piece of chocolate. It'll be shiny and it'll have a good snap to it. So the other thing that we want to do, so once we have the melted chocolate that looks like it's at the right consistency, then you want to cool it down. So if you're making a chocolate bar, you would put it in a mold and you would cool it, but you don't want to cool it ASAP and put it in the freezer and have it cool in 2 minutes. You want to have it cool slowly so that you're making sure that only the beta crystals grow. If you cool it too fast, then other unstable crystals will start to pop up, and then you're not going to get all that hard work that you did just to try to get only these beta crystals, and you're going to get other crystals to come. So making chocolate, it's definitely a little bit of patience just to get it to be tempered properly, but it's definitely worth the wait when you get that good chocolate bar. So it's a lot of different science aspects that you don't expect to see and think about whenever you think of all the stuff that goes into a chocolate bar, but it really is interesting that there is a lot of science behind it. So that's just a little brief overview of how chocolate is made. But I thought I'd leave some more questions from you guys, or you can ask anything about chocolate or Gettysburg or going into food science, whatever you guys would like.
So I guess I'll start if that's okay. I just had a question with the theobromine compound, I guess it is. So that's more theobromine is in dark chocolate, right? Like a higher concentration. So is that why veterinarians say do not especially let your dogs near dark chocolate because it's higher theobromine? And what is the theory behind that, or what is the chemistry behind that? Like, how does it interact with us versus other animals, or does it have any impact? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's funny. I'm not sure how it interacts with the dogs, but I know dogs do not process theobromine well. So that's what they want to try to avoid. So with dark chocolate, that has more of that liquor in it. So the chocolate liquor is higher amount in the dark chocolate. So most dark chocolate, there's either no milk or just a little bit of milk is allowed in there. And then there's also some sugar too. But with milk chocolate, you have a lot of milk in there and sugar and not as much chocolate liquor. So if there's not as much chocolate liquor, then the concentration of that theobromine shouldn't be as much. So it's, yeah, I think I try to avoid all chocolate with my dog, but sometimes there's, sometimes the dogs get into it, but yeah, the darker chocolate will be worse for them since it has more liquor in the overall concentration of the bar. Good question.
Kim, in your article on the Gettysburg website, it said that you were one of the scientists on the mint chocolate chip Kit Kat.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into perfecting the mint chocolate chip Kit Kat?
Yeah, so with product development, it's really fun that you get to work on a project. You start with an idea, so it could come from people like me in the lab, or it could come from our business partners in marketing, or it could come from you guys, like a consumer. We could see it on Facebook or on our website and just be like, oh, Monique is saying that we should get like a servo cookie candy bar out there, and that would be awesome. So you would start this process of, you have an idea, and then you make samples on a benchtop. So my lab in the Hershey Technical Center, it looks just like one of the chemistry labs at the Science Center, but there's also little mixers that are just like the KitchenAid mixers that you guys have at home. We have a bunch of bowls and spatulas. So we play around with ingredients and also use our, so you're cooking, but then you're using your science too. So you make different prototypes and you play around with, okay, let's make a servo cookie that is a gooey chocolate chip cookie. So then you try to make, okay, a chocolate chip cookie. So some people like it gooey, or some people like it crunchy, and you play around with all these different versions of what you think people would like. And then you, a lot of times we have early tests with consumers. So in big cities, there's testing facilities that have consumers. They come in, you get paid like $20 or something like that. So it'd be really fun for like when you guys are on break and not COVID times, but you go in and there's a facility that has like 6 to 8 people at a table and you have discussions about products. And then there's a one-way mirror. So then there's people like me behind this mirror that are watching you guys eat this product and say, ooh, I think this gooey one tastes good, or this crunchy one tastes like it's a burnt cookie or something. So you look and you hear what all these consumers are saying and you get this feedback. So it's not just my opinion on what a candy bar should be. You go back to the lab based on those recommendations from these consumers, and then you make it even better. And then during that time, you also look at the science behind it. Like, okay, can I have a gooey piece of cookie into a chocolate bar? Will that, or are there going to be some chemical interactions, or would the moisture mess up the chocolate, or how is that going to be over time? So you analyze that, like different components and physical properties of ingredients or the chocolate bar, along with trying to scale it up and test out different things with engineering partners. How would we make this in a plant? Because it can be a challenge. So we have engineering partners, we have different partners in another group called Sensory, which they help us taste different products and do consumer testing as well. So it's a really hands-on process with a lot of different scientists. And then if we get a good product, we test it again with an even bigger consumer platform. And if that scores well, then that's something we're like, hey, I think this should go out into launch to be the next big candy bar. So that's what happened with the Kit Kat item. So it's a lot of time goes into it. I think that took about 2 years to go from the start of initial testing out different flavors, different colors, what do people like, and you can narrow it down. So it's a big funnel of ideas, and then it narrows down to something that's actually really, really good. The other part of my job is I go into the plants. So there's a lot of different production plants across the country. There's a few in Hershey itself, and then there's also some across different states in the US. And then you go to the production facility, and there's these lines crank out hundreds of pounds of chocolate every hour. And then you need to work with the engineers on the line, the operators on the line, making sure that that candy bar, your little baby that you developed for 2 years, is looking and tasting, and everything is going great, and teach them how to make the best possible bar. So then the factory cranks out everything, and then a month or two later, then it's on the shelves so that you guys can enjoy. So it's a really interesting process, and it's a lot of tasting and eating, and and so it's a lot of fun.
Peter, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I had. Hey, thank you for the great talk. I had a question about how COVID-19 impacted your job in the lab, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this has been a very weird year, definitely. I know you guys have been feeling it too, with being on campus or off campus. So my lab, or my job, typically I'm in the lab and making samples or going into the plant and testing things out. So Hershey is being very proactive and making sure that everyone is staying safe. So I have been working from home. I'll say, like, working from home. So and I have all my work stuff here, and then if there's something that is for a project that is critical, not critical, like critical sounds like it's not like a medical field critical, but like if we have something that is on time for that needs to be done on time in order so that we can hit different launches and new products, then we organize our schedules, making sure that everyone stays safe and distance, and we have all the proper protocol in place. Then we can go into the lab. So I've gone into the lab. It's not a typical lab experience. We have our masks, and we also normally we wear hairnets anyway, just so that we don't have hair go into our food and everything. But it's just we stay distanced. It's just been a different experience. Even at the plants, everyone has been very safe and wearing masks and just trying to keep a distance. So you have to be very organized and making sure, okay, I'm going to be in at this time, get everything done as possible. And then, yeah, so it's definitely impacted things. And then other industries that help give us ingredients or different components that we use in the lab, they're doing similar things. So sometimes if I need to get an ingredient to make a new product, it'll get a little bit delayed too, because they're doing similar stuff. So it's definitely delayed things, and it's made us be a little bit more critical thinking, and how do we think outside the box to get stuff done. some people actually were bringing stuff into their kitchen. So they were making different things in their kitchen. I know I was playing around with chocolate bars or taking pictures of bars in my kitchen. So it's you have to get creative. Yeah.
Next, Emily, did you have a question?
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if something goes wrong whenever you're tempering the chocolate and the bad crystals form, is it possible to melt it down and try again to form the beta crystals, or is it just ruined at that point?
No, you just melt it down again. So it just takes a lot of patience. So usually you start it early in the morning. So some, like at the plant, they have huge tempering units that they do this automatically for you, but it just takes a little bit of time for hundreds of pounds of chocolate to get tempered. So that usually takes about a half hour or an hour or so for things to get tempered. So it's just, you have to put that into your schedule of, okay, I have to turn on this equipment to get this done on time. But sometimes if I'm in the lab and I'm only doing like a 500 gram batch of something, I don't need a huge tempering machine to do this. So sometimes I'll temper it by hand, or I'll put it in a little tempering unit. It's really small, but then if it doesn't work out, then you're like, oh, it's not tempered yet. And then it's like, well, I'll just do something else in the meantime. So you have to be very patient with it. So it's not like ready to go right away, but usually give it some time. An hour or two later, it'll eventually temper, but it is, it's an interesting process.
Thank you. We had another question from Jillian.
Yeah, I was just wondering, once you create a new product, how do you go about determining like the shelf life or best by date of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of that is because the process to make new products does take a lot of iterations and does take a lot of time. So some of your early prototypes, I usually start to check it for shelf life. So what I do is I put it in, I make a bunch of samples, and I put half of them I put into the freezer. And then the other half I just keep in, we have different temperature chambers so that it's always at certain temperature. So it's room temperature basically. And then I have reminders on my calendar. So I'm like, okay, every month I'll test this out and make sure, is my mint chocolate bar still minty enough, or is it, are the wafers starting to get stale? So it's just a nice way to get more snacks in your day. but we do monitor that informally, and then we also have bigger groups that monitor our products just to make sure that everything is okay. So to make sure that, is this okay to have out for a year, or is it something that needs to be shorter because the flavor or something starts to feel like it doesn't have the right texture? So just, it's like you have to wait it out and see. There's no way to speed it up. So you just test it every once in a while and see how it is. Good question.
So switching gears a little bit, if nobody else has a question, I think one of the really exciting things about this presentation for us at STEMinist is it's always just nice to see a Gettysburg alum really just moving and grooving and killing it in the field. So just sort of, would you like to speak a little bit about how your journey from Gettysburg to where you are was, maybe some of your challenges and biggest accomplishments? Like if you want to talk a little bit about your experience as an alumna.
Sure. No, that's good. I think it's definitely, I think each year there's always some new challenges. So obviously like right now, or people that are graduating right now, or people that just graduated, definitely some challenges of trying to find jobs whenever people are all working from home. I remember when I graduated in 2008, there was another type of recession. And so there was trying to get into grad school even was really difficult because usually for the science programs, they give you a stipend so that you can be a TA, and so then your tuition is covered. But I remember trying to find positions or even trying to get into grad school was a challenge that year. So just staying strong and using your network, trying to rely on, you gotta just stay strong is the main thing. So, and knowing what you want and just keep fighting for it. So I knew I wanted to go into food science, and Penn State had a really good program. And I think they only had like a couple positions open that year for their grad program. So I remember bugging their administrative assistant in their admissions office and talking to her on the phone, being like, "Hey, any updates with deciding when the grad program is going to get filled up or who's doing that?" And just making friends with those people. It actually really helped because she put my application on the top of the pile, and I was able to get in. And then after being admitted in there, I became friends with her, and I was like, "Thank you so much, you changed my life." So just networking is a great experience. Gettysburg, everyone's very passionate about being at Gettysburg. It is a smaller school, so it's not as many people out in bigger companies, but having that network, people are more willing to help, I feel like, and just having that there. So using people that you know helps get you in the door, and just keeping that network open really helped.
And when you were on campus, can you think about what you did in your 4 years and how the work that you may have done on campus, whether it was research or leadership positions, and how that influenced or assists you now in the work that you do?
Yeah, that's a good question, Monique. So I think being on campus, I think Gettysburg, it's great that our science programs, it's the labs are small, the classes are small, and you get to know your professors, you get to have that confidence. I think having that boosted confidence, I didn't realize it at the time, but then going into Penn State, seeing how big the classes are, there's literally like 300 or 400 people in some of the classes, and you're like, oh, this is normal, and there's 20 different lab options for this one class. So having your group of friends at Gettysburg in your major, you're always with them in those classes, getting that network established because you're always close, that was good. And then just having small lab sizes, or even just doing summer research. So I was with Professor Jameson in the summer between junior year and senior year. And I think that was really good, just to have more confidence in the lab and just being able to play around with stuff and not have it be like in your lab manual and being like, okay, I add this to this and this is how it counts. So having that independent research, I think, really helps. And then also doing like a little bit of a thesis project in Gettysburg too, I think that also helps build your confidence and build your core skills going into grad school. It really puts you over the edge. So whenever I went into grad school, the Penn State Food Science program, it is small, so it reminded me of Gettysburg, but some of the core classes, you still had to take statistics, or I know I had to retake biochem for some reason, but so sometimes you might have to retake some stuff because the classes don't fully integrate, but just being in those classes and you're like, oh, this was very different from Gettysburg. And so it made me really appreciate being at Gettysburg and talking with professors, becoming friendly with them. Don't be afraid to ask questions or get extra help, or even just helping with teaching in the labs or being a TA or helping with tutoring. That really helps, and it helps boost your, I think it helps boost your confidence as a great scientist. So helping others, I think that's great. And just the other part that I loved at Gettysburg was just also networking with people that weren't in your science major. So I know this is STEMist, but like you have your core friends at the Science Center, but then it's also having some other friends that are history majors or English majors, and having that different disciplines so you could have those conversations and just be so much more well-rounded. So that's what I just loved about Gettysburg, that you have that wide breadth that doesn't get offered at other schools.
What's your favorite Hershey candy?
I'm a Reese's junkie, so I've been working on some stuff like that, but then I'm eating it at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, well, it's for work, so it shouldn't be that bad, but I haven't been sick of it yet. It's probably a bad thing.
So going along with that, how does your lab just focus on the chemistry of the chocolate itself, or do you also look at interactions between other ingredients in the candy and any sort of like interactions between that and the chocolate, or like what do you do with that in your lab?
Yeah, so it's more so the going in depth with chemistry. So there's a lot of different disciplines in research and development in the food industry. So with product development, sadly, I don't use as much of my chemistry as I should, but it's more with interactions of ingredients. So you're also using like biology, and you're also using physics. And so it's just a lot of different stuff combined. But there's also other aspects of food science where they're measuring, they're doing texture analysis on different components, and what is the moisture content, how do we figure that out? Or there's also something called water activity. That's like the available water that's in a product. So jelly is something that's a really moist product, but because it's so much sugar is in there, then it's not able to grow as much microbially. So because there's so much sugar that like nothing can grow. So that has different water activities than say I'm trying to think like what else is there, like just like a fat-based cream or something. So there's different properties of so it's using a whole bunch of disciplines all together, and it's also just using experience on the job experience too. So I think with getting a lot of lab experience and just doing a lot of different disciplines, I think it just helps you think critically, so that a lot of jobs, not just with food science, I think a lot of jobs in the science field or in general, it's a lot of on-the-job training and specific to that company. So having a discipline that you're able to think quickly, or you're able to connect things and put it together quickly and be independent and do a good job, that's what people are looking for. So I think that's a good thing to strive for.
I have one last question. I know that you were a part of the team that made the like record-breaking, I was a Kit Kat or Reese's. How exactly do you double a recipe to that degree to break a world record?
Oh my gosh. So that was not, that was just something crazy. And it was sort of like problem solving. So there was a team of us that went to at Chocolate World. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with like the Hershey area, but there's Chocolate World is right next to Hershey Park, and so it's a big ride that they show you how chocolate's made, and then they also sell all this Hershey products. So they cleared out this big room for us to make a huge Take 5 bar, so that it could be a promotion for the Super Bowl ad that they were doing. So Take 5, if you guys haven't had it, it's like the best candy. They have, it's peanut butter, peanuts, pretzel, chocolate, and caramel. So it's 5 ingredients. So it makes it Take 5. And I count it as a meal or a meal replacement if I have a couple of them, but it's normally just like a small bar, like this big. We made it, I think it was like 8,000 pounds. So we took huge blocks of chocolate and stack them up. So I felt like I was just being a little kid and basically just combining everything that you could to make, it's the recipe, so it's the right ratios, but just like putting it all in there. So again, like critical thinking, problem solving. If something isn't going right, then you're just like, what do I have to do? Like, and we were at, we did this at Chocolate World. There were people watching because they had windows up. So you're doing all this stuff, and it had to be something that you had to eat. So you had to be very clean, wear a hairnet, wash your hands, and use proper cooking utensils and spatulas. So it's just something that it was definitely a very unique experience of just stacking up chocolate bars, throwing in, dumping in pretzels and caramel, spreading it out with spatulas, and having like 5 people lean over carefully to spread stuff out, and then putting everything on, and like it's like adding, I felt like it was like making a cake, then putting on chocolate on the top and spreading it out just to make it look perfect. So a huge team effort and a lot of problem solving and group work just to figure out like, how do you make this? So it's not something that you do every day, but stuff like that is surprisingly something that's normal at Hershey. It's fun. So it's not, every day is different in product development at Hershey for sure.
If I could ask another question about, I guess, future development, is Hershey looking into, for, I guess, there's an increase in the number of people who are having disorders or issues related to the foods they eat, or consequences as to interactions with food, not just allergies, but maybe with other diseases like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. Is Hershey looking into possibly having alternatives like gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, as a different line of products, so that these people don't face consequences with Hershey's bars? Or is it kind of just like, it's so small, it doesn't really make a difference?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I didn't realize it as a consumer. There's so much stuff out there, and then if you just go and look at stuff that's in the checkout line, there's not that, it's just the normal stuff. But if you look online, or if you look in the candy row, there's so many options of candy. So Hershey has a lot of sugar-free options for people that like are diabetic, or if you're trying to do keto. So sugar-free, there's a bunch of different sugar-free chocolates and sugar-free, and there's Reese and Hershey's and York peppermint patty sugar-free. And then there's a lot of items that are actually gluten-free as well. So, and Hershey is really good about trying to maintain keeping production facilities clean and making sure we're not cross-contaminating with allergens of like tree nuts or peanuts, or there's some plants that don't have any nuts at all. So the Twizzlers facility, they do not have any peanuts, which is great for people that are allergic to peanuts, or even just having special lines so you don't have almonds. I know the peanut butter cups, those are gluten-free, and they maintain that they're gluten-free. I think there's a number of items. There's a lot of stuff that is gluten-free, and they try to, they do really strict allergen cleaning with stuff. So it's, the advertising and the main products aren't obvious, but if you look on the back or if you go on websites, you can see that there are some options available. But it's definitely a target, because there's a lot of niche things that are really important to people. So we want to make sure we spread some happiness to all those people that need it.
How did you know that you wanted to be a chem major?
I always loved science. I always liked, in high school, I thought chemistry just came easy to me. So I think I was weird that going into college, I knew I wanted to do chemistry. And I enjoyed the classes at Gettysburg, and I always liked doing math too. And so having to take only a couple extra math classes, I was like, oh, why not? That's fun. So I always liked doing that. And I always think it was, I think back of my grandmother, she was actually a chemistry major as well. And thinking back and looking back at the differences that she tells me of stories of her college experience versus mine, it's just amazing. And I was thinking back of that right now, because I'm thinking of like STEMinists and how far we've come from science, like seeing how many girls are in this call right now. Even at Gettysburg, I feel like it was very equal of gender. There was a lot of girls in my classes, and I didn't feel like there was any issues of being held back or anything like that. So I love that that's not something. But I remember my grandmother saying that she always liked science and math, and she said that whenever she was in college, she liked math, but then the professors, like, they would be like, you shouldn't be majoring in math. What are you going to do with that? You're a girl. So it's just amazing. So she's 91 now, so that was a long time ago, but like thinking back of how far she's come, like it's definitely great that there's so many women in science and math and engineering, and even now at Hershey and across like the food industry, it seems like it's pretty equal to me. There's definitely women and men in food science and in product development. I think with engineering, that one is more a little bit skewed towards men. So that one, I think, if you guys want to be engineers, go for it. Get some more girls there. But but yeah, I think it's great how far everyone has come with this and keeping on with the girl power. Yeah.
Did you feel like prepared going into grad school from what you learned from Gettysburg, or did you feel there were like kind of some like gaps of knowledge there?
I think going into food science, I should have taken more biology classes, and honestly, I didn't like biology that much. So I didn't in high school, I hated biology. So I didn't even take any bio classes at Gettysburg. I took biochem, and I should have taken more so that I could, because I didn't realize that food science was so like everything was connected. So I wish I would have taken more. So I had to take a advanced grad school microbiology class, and it was not a good, it wasn't good. But I was talking with the professor, and it was one of the prerequisites for the food science grad program that I needed to take this. And so he realized that this wasn't what I wanted to do in life, is become a food microbiologist and look for salmonella in food. But so he worked with me. I had to study a little bit extra for that one. But overall, I think with doing research and doing other science classes, it really did. It was fine switching from going chemistry into a different discipline. I think it was good building blocks of having confidence in the lab, and honestly, some of the stuff I think we had a little bit more of an advantage just because we had professors teaching us, and it wasn't some of the TAs teaching us, and just being able to have open conversations and learning with that. I think that really having those open conversations in class and I think that really helped. So I didn't have any issues moving from undergrad to grad. If you're switching into a different discipline, maybe just take a few more extra classes, so don't go into an advanced microbiome class if you don't have bio. That was my lesson.
Are there any final questions for Kim?
Kim, do you have any last sort of words of wisdom for all of our members here?
I think just stay positive. I know right now things are crazy, and you guys are doing a great job of doing things online, and just keep working hard. And if you're graduating this or in the spring, just keep at it. Don't give up. That's the main thing. And just keep on emailing people, or just keep going and following what you think. That if you want to go into in industry right out of school, or if you want to go into grad school, go for it. Just follow where you think, follow your gut, and just it'll happen. It might happen a little bit slower this year, but you got it. You guys are good, and I know it'll work out.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Kim. This was such an amazing talk, and it's really nice to hear about all the different, this is like a new perspective, at least for me and probably some of the other chem majors. It's a new perspective on a really exciting career path that, frankly, at least I didn't even think about taking. But thank you so much for speaking with us, and it's really, really just great to hear how awesome one of our own alumni is doing. And yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who came tonight. We had some crazy attendance, which is really, really awesome. If you'd like to join our alias and see what kind of fun stuff we're doing, I think we're having a Bill Nye walking event next semester. Just send your email in the chat. And thank you again to Monique for helping us set this up. And thank you to the Office of Multicultural Engagement for co-sponsoring with us.